Okay, think about this for a second. How do you actually audit an algorithm's morals? I mean, it's a seriously tough question, right? But the stakes of unmanaged AI have literally never been higher. We constantly hear about AI bias, massive privacy breaches, and that scary black box decision making. But how do we actually fix it? How do we take these super abstract ethical ideas and turn them into measurable, hard controls that a company can actually be audited against? Well, that is exactly the puzzle we are going to solve today. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the definitive, concrete solution for operationalizing AI ethics, and that is ISO/IEC 42001-2023. Think of this international standard as the ultimate strategic playbook for managing AI risks. But we aren't just looking at the nuts and bolts of technical security today. We're zeroing in on how this framework adapts to emerging AI ethical considerations. We're going to put on our auditor's hat and see exactly what real compliance looks like. All right, let's take a quick look at our agenda. We are going to cover the ethical AI imperative, core AI ethical principles, protecting privacy and consent, navigating ethical conflicts, and we'll wrap up with documenting ethical adaptations. Starting with Section 1, the ethical AI imperative, from abstract to concrete. So we are totally moving past those lofty philosophical debates you hear in conference rooms and stepping right into the world of hard auditable mandates. There's a massive difference between an abstract ethical idea like do no harm and an actual concrete ISO 42001 control. If you're an auditor, you can't measure a vague feeling like fairness, right? This standard bridges that gap. It takes be fair and forces it to become mandatory bias risk assessments, required mitigation logs, and strict governance structures. It basically forces organizations to prove their ethics on paper and right inside their system architecture. Moving on to Section 2, Core AI Ethical Principles, Auditing the Pillars of AI. Now, there are a few fundamental pillars that any solid artificial intelligence management system has to systematically tackle. The absolute first one is fairness. Under the ISO standard, fairness explicitly means ensuring AI systems do not discriminate, period. It's about proactively preventing biases based on race, gender, socioeconomic status, or any other personal characteristics. But here's the real kicker. Fairness isn't some afterthought you bolt on at the end. It has to be integrated actively during the design phase. Auditors are going to look for hard evidence of diverse training data and continuous bias mitigation protocols from day one. Let's bring this down to earth with a real-world example from our sources. Imagine an AI hiring tool. During an audit, you discover that the tool is actually favoring specific demographics. That is a massive ethical and compliance risk. Well, the standard mandates a very specific corrective treatment here. The organization can't just shrug it off. They must revise their training datasets, actively diversify the applicant pool data, and fundamentally update the algorithm to reflect fairness. And of course, they have to prove that they actually took all those steps.
Which leads us right into our next core principle, transparency. Transparency is all about the ability of an AI system to actually explain its decision-making process to users and stakeholders in a way that, makes sense to a human being. It's about destroying that black box effect. If an AI makes a decision that impacts your life, you have an absolute right to understand the logic behind it.
This right here is super interesting. The framework is incredibly strict about transparency, especially in high-stakes fields. It explicitly states that if a healthcare system uses a machine learning model to predict patient outcomes, the healthcare professionals must be able to explain the exact reasoning behind those predictions. In medicine, finance, or criminal justice, explainability is a non-negotiable mandate. If your model is just too complicated to explain, well, under ISO 42001, it might just be deemed non-compliance.
And building directly on transparency is accountability. Honestly, you really can't have one without the other. Accountability means setting up hard mechanisms to audit AI decisions, monitor outcomes over time, and this is the big one, take absolute responsibility for any negative consequences. So if an AI system unfairly routes public waste management resources, the organization cannot just point a finger and blame the machine. They own that outcome, and they need accountability frameworks ready to fix it. Section 3. Protecting privacy and consent, the human element. Okay, let's shift our focus from the machine itself over to the people using it. Ethical goals map directly to technical requirements under this standard, and they often work hand in hand with major privacy laws like GDPR. If your goal is protecting vulnerable groups, the standard strictly requires data protection impact assessments to evaluate those risks. For informed user consent, you have to build explicit opt-in and opt-out mechanisms, plus adhere to purpose limitation, which basically means you only use the data for exactly what you promised you'd use it for.
And for overall inclusivity and privacy, the standard demands super strict access controls, data minimization, and heavy encryption. So when auditors dig into informed user consent, they are looking for strict, fully operationalized mandates. A company has to provide crystal clear information on why they are collecting data, secure explicit consent before a single byte of processing begins, and guarantee the user's absolute right to withdraw that consent whenever they want. Plus, there has to be rigorous protection of any sensitive personal data. If every single one of these points isn't locked down, the AI system simply fails compliance.
Section 4. Navigating ethical conflicts when things go wrong.
Because let's face it, in the real world, things do go wrong. Data breaches happen and massive ethical dilemmas pop up. The true test of any system is how an organization responds under pressure. The ISO standard lays out these very strict ethical guidelines for lead auditors who manage these conflicts. They have to exercise absolute integrity, complete objectivity to dodge any conflicts of interest, and keep everything strictly confidential. This is absolutely crucial during whistleblowing events, where an auditor has to stay fiercely independent so they can report ethical violations neutrally, without giving in to internal corporate pressure. So the really important part is knowing the exact playbook when a breach or an ethical failure hits. Here is the crisis management flow mandated when ISO 42001 works with standards like GDPR. Step 1, incident identification and containment. Lock it down. Step 2, a rapid severity assessment of the breach. Step 3 is vital. A 72-hour transparent notification to the authorities and to the affected people if the risk is high. There is no hiding it, transparency is key. And finally, step 4, implementing corrective action and thoroughly documenting the root cause.
Section 5. Documenting ethical adaptations. The proof.
Under this framework, actually being ethical isn't quite enough. You have to prove it with meticulous documentation. Let's say a team discovers a hidden bias in a lending algorithm, a complex algorithmic conflict. They have to document how they fixed it using a very specific framework. First, they write down the ethical challenge, a crystal clear account of the dilemma. Second, the actions taken, the exact technical steps they implemented to fix it. Third, the rationale, why they took that specific path and how it perfectly aligns with ISO 42001. And fourth, the outcomes, the final results and how it impacted system audit.
Let's take a step back here, because this really builds our whole understanding of AI compliance. Documentation is what ensures that every single ethical adaptation your team makes is entirely transparent, easily traceable, and completely justifiable for future audits. It's the ultimate, tangible proof that you are running a trustworthy artificial intelligence management system. Without this paper trail, any claims a company makes about ethical AI are honestly just words on a marketing brochure. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on today. Is your AI actually acting ethically, or is it just waiting to be audited? ISO/ISO 2001-2023 forces organizations to stop waiting and start proving it. By baking fairness, transparency, privacy, and ironclad documentation right into the DNA of our systems, we can make sure AI actually works for the benefit of everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking the hard questions about the technology that's shaping our world.